Start this one off with this quote I saw the other day. 10 years ago, the internet was an escape from the real world. Today, the real world is an escape from the internet. That one really resonated with me. I wanted to start us off there because so much of what the discourse online kind of ends with these days is like, go touch grass, bro. Like you gotta turn it off. You gotta just go out and literally just walk through the fucking fields and realize that everything is not the real world. Sorry, everything is not the internet in the real world. Now, I do think the internet is spilling over more and more and more into the real world. At this point, they're nearly indifferentiable. However, you still do have that dichotomy of you'll act a certain way online and you won't act that way in person, right? So many people have insane Twitter fingers that they would never be able to articulate that in person, either because, they're just one, not well spoken enough, or two, not confident enough, whatever, or it's a pretty bad thing to say that you don't really want your real name attached. But what do you think about that? What's Web 3? Yeah. Well, those glasses I've seen of like mock-up designs, essentially like incredible augmented reality wherein you'll be looking at, like, I'll have like my glasses on or whatever, but then it'll have the internet in there, and essentially what it is, it's like you're out of like the store, just say, and you're like looking at the apples, and it's like this $1.99, like a pound, right? Or like for Honey Crisp, and then like Red Delicious 99 cents a pound, and you can like have like your texts up and like a little portion or whatever, things like that, where it's essentially just like your phone like overlaid in front of your vision as well, which that looks insane. Yeah, I mean, this is we're gonna go to the other one. I think this is a much better lead in here with this Zuck metaverse, right? What was what was what's their VR called? Meta's like Nexus or something? Oculus. It's called the Oculus, right? So that is Paul. Yeah, that is Palmer Lucky. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That looks like an insane guy. We could probably do an entire episode on, but I don't. Yeah, that's the best business model there is. You have an unlimited demand because these weapons are destroyed. They go into the ether, and then you need more of them. Um, so all right, back to Zuck in the metaverse. Five-ish years ago, it seemed like everyone was betting on like VR being the next big thing, the next big iteration of the internet, right? There's a community quote that popped into my head. It's like we were building worlds within worlds, right? Like you can be like masters of creation sort of deal. And it kind of seems like the market is kind of said it's a little too gimmicky at this stage, right? It's not AR right yet. It's not good enough AR yet. It's like essentially just a video play over your eyes, and I heard complaints about like dizziness and like nausea, things like that, which makes sense when you have a completely fake like screen in front of you essentially. Did he get like a big enough adaptation of that technology? I think to like even get that like spatial data that he was looking for. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because I like 5 years back, you would like go into like your cousin's house or your buddy's place, and like someone would have like an Oculus like sitting around, and like you like pick it up and like wear it for like 2 minutes. Like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. Then you set it down. But like in the last like couple of years, I don't know like anyone who's actually like using those VRs really. No. Or I bet the vast majority of those sales were like parents getting it for their kids. I bet the kids used it for like a couple weeks probably, and probably set it down because I don't know like a ton of like really young people. Obviously, we're too old for that now, but like I have like smaller cousins, or like you go to like family events or whatever. Kids are always just like on their phones. No one's like on like a VR headset in the corner, like totally zonked out of reality. Well, I don't know. He poured in a shit ton of money into that metaverse too. Like they're trying to sell like real estate in the metaverse. Like I don't think that ever took off either. Like that has to be seen as like failure for right now at least, or at least it's thrown on the back burner. Like maybe 10, 20 years from now, this will be like a thing that we can adapt to better with some type of new technology we don't even like know about yet, possibly. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Anything else there? I have a pretty good tie-in to a different one. Yeah. So we're talking about like insane technologies. I had saw this I think like a week or two back. Wanted to talk about it here. Drone warfare has taken over in multiple fronts. Russia and Ukraine being the most predominant one you see. You can literally watch that war like live streamed on YouTube from drone footage. It's pretty insane. I was talking to my one buddy at work. He's a pretty big gun nut, so he's like pretty like in tune with like military technology stuff. But he was saying there are like miles into miles, like thousands of miles of like fiber optic cables that are just gonna be like forever in like the fields of Ukraine because those are like all like connected to like drones. So there's just like insane amounts of like it used to be like probably better than leftover like mines in like your country after a war, but like apparently there's going to be like an insane like natural disruption of that. But the drone warfare I was seeing was I don't know which side this was. I think this was Ukraine though. They have like an online point system, essentially something out of the realm of Call of Duty, where you have your drone set up, and then if you go get like two confirmed kills, just say you get like 40,000 XP, and then you can use that XP to like upgrade your unit. Which this is for any non gamers out there, literally straight out of every single video game is like complete a mission, you get some experience points, you boost up your current build with that experience points, so then you can go out and like do more missions, and that's exactly what the war is. That's what like the metaverse is almost like that AI or the VR we are just talking about. Oh yeah, you did send me this. This is insane. I mean, so for anyone who doesn't really know what they're looking at, someone's wearing like essentially like an Oculus or something of the type, and they're getting like real time. What is this like? Like X-ray vision essentially. Not, I think it just switched to like a heat map. That yeah, that's crazy. And again, that's the, do you know do you know how those drone operators operate them? An Xbox 360 controller. Literally, so I think you can do like almost any like setup you want, right? Like if you're like used to like working your PC or whatever, I'm sure you can operate it through a PC. But a lot of the people working these drones, they're all like our age or younger. They're like 20-year-old kids basically. What are they most familiar with? An Xbox controller. So they are literally playing Xbox essentially with like a $300,000 military drone, committing like real time on. Yeah, that's really what it is. Like yeah, like oh, you shouldn't be playing video games. You should be learning how to code, right? Oh yeah, that's gonna be a more useful skill set in the future. Uh, I I don't know about like their own headsets or whatever, but I am almost positive they have speakers on them, so you can like mentally fuck with your opponent, right? Like you've heard of Hanoi Hannah, right? Oh, dude, this was during like Vietnam. The Vietnamese like recorded this lady, and they would play through these like speakers in the jungles at night, like "GI, go home. Your country has abandoned you. Like your family will not love you. GI, do not die in a foreign war." And you just hear that 24/7, like in all directions in the jungle at night. You're like, fuck, maybe I should get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. We can agree it's not about. We can agree it's not about fentanyl, right? That's the sell. That's the selling point that they're giving to Americans. It's, oh, we have 40,000 people dying a year. They don't give a shit about fent heads dying. Like I'm sorry, but they just yeah. I still struggle on that aspect of it. What I had seen mostly, uh, what this conflict will would most likely be over at like the highest level would be about like the petrodollar. Venezuela has like the highest oil reserve of any nation in the world. Apparently, I didn't know that. I thought it would definitely would have been somewhere in like the Middle East or even maybe like Russia or something, just because they have so much goddamn land and so much like glaciers and shit that's got to be hiding under. But apparently, Venezuela had begun to agree to deal with the Chinese and pay in yuan as opposed to the dollar, which is that's what the petrodollar is. You must buy and trade oil in dollars. Part of the reason why we're like the global reserve currency, and that was my understanding of probably like the base level of where this conflict is revolving around. cyber warfare might be the most important at this point. Like all the insane political dissension that we have, probably all because of bot farms in Russia and China. Yeah, so I have maybe two things here. Just one a little about the history. I can't claim to be an expert on history, obviously, but I've had seen this video the other day. When Maduro first won the election, I think the U.S. did not recognize him. I think we like recognized like the old party or whatever, and we said like that's the actual president of Venezuela. Um, I don't know why exactly we didn't accept him. He's like 99% Maduro, 1% the other guy. Yeah, yeah. Oh, damn. I mean, that's a get rich quick scheme right there. We just need one of those like Xbox controlled drones, realistically. um, and then oh, how the hell do you determine illegal immigration numbers? Yeah. The documented undocumented immigrants. Um, I wanted to bring up Dave. I was watching some Dave Smith the other day. You kind of turned me on to him the other day. I've listened to a few of his podcasts since, but one of the most interesting things I heard him talking about was basically after, like, from the Cold War until now, the US has spent like some crazy amount of money, like 10 to 15 like trillion dollars or something, on eternal war, essentially. So from like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, yeah, I think Cold War even went to like the 80s. During that time period, we just that's what, like, every single war that we got in was a Cold War war, right? So like Vietnam, Korea, those were conflicts because we were fighting communism, right? Because we had this ideological battle that we were fighting. Okay, it was a Cold War against Russia, never had troops on the ground there, but every other proxy war was because of that. And that's still probably going on today. We have not been able to ditch this idea of eternal war. We were talking about Palmer Luckey and how I said that's the best business to go into. That's because it is. Our number one export as a country is war. We spend more than the next 8 countries combined on defense, right? And so if we stopped our defense spending, we would fall into like a recession or worse, probably. So it's I don't think it's a good sign when you're an empire that's clearly on the downward. Your number one export is war, and your biggest competitor for us, which is China, they're now the economic powerhouse seemingly because they're going to countries with handshakes and deals, and we're going to them with bombs and drones. Yeah. They did declare that the end of history there, didn't they? Ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, dude, the US won, like capitalism won, like the USSR is done. Like there can never be anything that's gonna happen after this. Fucking assholes. Scott Francis Scott Key. I think we brought this up before. I kind of wanna throw it back out there again. Francis Fukuyama. So you mentioned the surveillance state in China. I think I've asked this before. I don't know if we've gotten too far into it though. China does have a surveillance state. They have like the social credit system, right? So like I've seen things like if you jaywalk or like you like cross the street at a certain time, they'll literally like put your picture up there and they'll like put the word like jaywalker next to you, right? Literally just like socially discriminating. That's not the right word. Shaming, socially shaming you. Um, yeah. Uh, that being said, we also live in a surveillance state. I saw a video the other day. A guy was like, I went into Walmart. I did not have my cell phone on me. He's like, I had forgotten my phone at home. I went into Walmart. I went to the electronics department. I paid with cash for my item. I go home and I have an email from Walmart asking for a product review on the item I had just bought. It's like, how could they possibly know that I was there? Because I didn't have my tracking device on me, my phone. I didn't pay with a credit card. I paid with cash. How could they possibly know? It's because we live in a surveillance state. They have facial recognition data, and if you do something heinous enough, like, shoot a healthcare CEO, they will be able to track your movements from every single camera to the nth degree of where you went before, afterwards, what you had for dinner 2 Tuesdays ago. So here's a question I want to offer you. Because I do believe we live in a surveillance state as well. Is it better to have China's surveillance state where you live in a surveillance state because they put everything out there, or is it better to live like we do and no, 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 you're free, you're super, super, super free. We just track every single thing that you do and say and look at, and we don't tell you about it. They can't. They certainly could. They just capitulate. They capitulate because Walmart's not going to say no to the U.S. government. They don't give a shit. It looked, yeah. It looked like you had like a that reminds me moment when I said he paid with cash, didn't have like the app on him. Was there something you wanted to bring up there? Yeah. Well, it's also very easy to yeah. It's very easy to spot a sharp if you're a casino because what Big Time Tommy does, he plays his 5 5 5 or whatever it's 10 10 10 10. Then he'll throw down 100. When you change your bet sizes like that, that's when they realize like, oh fuck, this guy's trying to gain an advantage on us. Which it is legal to do, but it is also legal for them to say you can't play here anymore. Yeah, yeah. All right. Yes. And at what point is there almost no degree of separation there? Like, yeah, yeah. Here's a little one that I didn't bring up beforehand just because it just popped up organically. But you said a bartender can cut you off, right? This is different from what we were just talking about. But ethical question, I guess, like a moral question, whatever. When you when you go to a bar, they can serve you drinks and serve you drinks and serve you drinks, and they never have to cut you off. They can cut you off, like you said. If you're harassing the bartender or whatever, like they can cut you off. Say we don't have to do business with you anymore. Please go home. You're drunk. However, if you get in a car accident on the way home and you kill someone from drunk driving, apparently the bar can be held liable. And then so the question then becomes, I know what I think. should a bar be held liable for your consumption, or should it fall solely on you? And I think that one's, in my opinion, pretty easy. I don't think a bar should be held responsible for how much you consume. I think it has to all fall on you. I don't think there should be any onus on like a bar to limit you what they think is best for you. Yeah. Well, and then alcohol is also just such a weird thing because you could have a big 300-pound dude who drinks every weekend or every day or whatever go in there, literally slam 12 beers and be pure straight eyed, dead shot, like almost nothing to it. He drives home because he does it every single day. You can have some 22-year-old who barely drinks come in, drink like three dirty Shirleys, and then just fucking crash their car on the way home. It's like, oh, was three too many to serve that person? Like, no, clearly not. So I don't like. I heard no, no, dude, that came up at work today. I'm like, that's real. Like that's insane that somehow the bar can be held responsible for that. I don't get it. Personal responsibility. Yeah. Yeah. That's what. Yeah. I was shocked when I read that. Two things about you can pour more like vodka into a mixed drink. Just say my parents. I remember this even when I was like really young. I was like 9 or 10 or something. And my parents always got ordered beers, right? Beers every single time we'd go out. When they would drink at home, it would always be beers. And I'd ask them like, because I'd see like other people drinking like a martini or whatever. I'm like, why don't you get like a margarita or whatever, right? Like that looks so much more fun than like the Miller Lite you drink every single time we go out. My mom's like, well, because I know there's 4.2% alcohol in this drink versus you order a margarita, you have no idea how much you're actually consuming, right? So again, personal responsibility to a certain extent where you should know how much you're getting. I do kind of agree with what you were saying there though. Like, all right, I order a vodka tonic. You're expecting, whatever like the 1 unit of alcohol is. I think it's like 1 ounce of like 40% is the same as like a 4% beer. So you're expecting that much alcohol. If they pour three in there, and you're overserved in that aspect, okay, maybe you could start making the argument that way. But that was an interesting one, I thought. Yeah. Uh huh. That might be a boomer thing. But then also you start to then when you're like you grow up, you're like in college, you're in the drinking age. You also realize, all right, my mom just likes the taste of beer, right? Like she doesn't goddamn want a martini, right? Like you drink beer for 20 years, you that's what you want. That's what you're like expecting out of it. I had one final one here, then maybe we can move on. Growing up is realizing you go to a bar, you see a full packed parking lot, and then when you leave the bar at night, there's no cars in the parking lot. Everyone drives home drunk. Right, right. Well, dude, so now it's crazy. This could be an even counterpoint to what we had just agreed on for the last 5 minutes. You've seen those videos in like Alabama or Missouri or whatever. It's like when they just passed the law that you can't be over .08, and it's like, what? I can't have a beer and drive my own damn truck home. What is this country coming to? Right? And you know what that has the same exact vibes of? It's you've probably seen this. It's infamous now. I think it's like the 2016 libertarian debate, and it's there's like six liber yeah, yeah, there's six libertarians up there. There's the one dude who's like respectable, and then there's like four or five just like nut jobs essentially, like the classic like libertarian, like there shouldn't even be a government, right? But the question is, should you be required to pass like a driver aptitude test to get like a driver's license? Right? Essentially, should you have to pass a driving test to get a driver's license? Every single one of them, no, 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 no. The one guy's like, yes, I would like to see some proficiency in driving to go on the roads. Everyone goes boo in the crowd, and then the one dude, he was like the most outspoken guy. He's like, a driver's license to drive my car? What's next? I have to get a license to make toast in my own damn toaster? And everyone's like, yeah. Yeah, what Dave Smith said. I don't think so. Go on. Probably like the 80s. How funny is like that's a prank video. That's like a prank, like from a couple decades ago. It's like there's a woman pilot. Like what? I actually I actually like that show. That show gets shit on a lot, but I kind of like that show. Uh, I, oh, I think I heard that. I have another one of a prank video. Were you on the feed? Like, did Murr come up to you and like try and like lick your elbow or something? pretty funny. Uh, I have another prank to talk about. Did you see? This was maybe like a year back, maybe 2 years back, even. But it's a video. It's like a YouTuber, like a TikToker. He goes up to people in like the mall or whatever, and he has his phone out, and he's like trying to talk. I think he's trying to talk to like an Asian person or something. So he's doing like Google Translate, but he would just have his phone say like some obnoxious shit to him, like you sucky me, like shit like that, right? Like all right, whatever. You're doing this for shock value, but the guy's like get away from me. He like walks away. The guy like the YouTuber like tracks him down or whatever and like harasses him. Dude fucking pulls out his gun and shoots him in like the middle of the mall. And then so dude, he got acquitted. He got acquitted of yeah, he got acquitted. It was like yeah, like literally he was like being harassed. So he might get like a gun discharge thing, which all right, that's like a fine or like, like 30 days probation or whatever. But like the slap on the wrist, like that, like the assault got dropped because like yeah, I was on that guy's side too. I'm a big anti-gun guy, but it's like, all right, if you're just gonna keep going up to this guy when he tells you, like, he told him like 5 times, like no, or like tried to walk away or be like leave me alone, and the guy just like kept coming up to him. It's like, all right, that is like that's harassment. That is like, cause this guy doesn't know what the fuck's going on. He's probably never seen a prank video in his life. Like he doesn't know like what this guy's like intention is. Yeah, the person's like yeah. So I have two things to say. One, I watch this prank video guy. This dude who like he has like a fart button in his pocket, so he'll like be like walking, and he'll like have someone absurd like and he's like, oh boy, that came out the wrong end. He like runs away, and it's always like like good looking girls usually like, and they're like, oh my god, and then they go up to him afterwards like, oh, it was a prank, it was a prank, and they're like so like chill or whatever. But the thing I liked about Impractical Jokers, we're talking about pranks. I saw this comment about them once. The joke is almost always on them. It's not on the audience. They are embarrassing themselves, right? Like they're not going up and like trying to embarrass someone. They're playing pranks on each other. They're making like these guys do something uncomfortable. They're not like putting that on their like unsuspecting audience. So I think that's where the difference is. If the joke's on you versus the joke's on like the other person. Right. Right. They are. Uh quick break. Yeah.
Yesterday, Nick Fuentes appeared on Piers Morgan. Now we've mentioned Nick Fuentes on the show
That's where it
before, and
started
at the
off.
time, it was probably about 3 months ago when we first mentioned him. And I think the conversation was something along the lines of like, "Hey, I just saw him recently pop up on my For You page or Explore page, and he was saying something that I kind of agreed with." And I think me and you both said this, which is kind of odd because we tend to disagree a lot in politics. But we both said something like this, and that to us at the time, he was always kind of made out to be this boogeyman type character who I personally, I mean, what was your opinion of Nick Fuentes prior to, say, Charlie Kirk's assassination? I never really gave him a chance. I knew that the right, the people like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, that everyone was calling a Nazi, they didn't like
Yeah.
him because they thought he was a Nazi. So I was kind of like, all right, that if that I'm not trying to lean any more right than I already am. So I don't never really gave him a shot. I assume that's probably similar.
Yeah, so I hadn't really ever listened to much of his stuff at all. And what you had said initially about how it doesn't sound as bad as people make it out to be, right? Like maybe people are, blowing too much smoke into this fire. Um I hadn't seen too much of his stuff, and I had seen some clips of him, with reasonable enough talking points. It's like, oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't be getting involved in foreign wars, and maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, all right, yeah, maybe he's not as bad as they make him out to be. I'd always heard that, oh, this guy's a uber Nazi, this guy's a fucking white supremacist, this guy's a racist, and I hadn't like looked too much into it. I'd always known he was like a fringe guy, so I never like paid him too much attention. Um, Now he's starting to get into the mainstream a little bit more, and now I have seen some of these clips that people were referencing when they called him a Nazi, and yeah, there's a lot of pretty damning evidence against this guy. Um, Basically, what that I saw a video very recently. There's two sides of Nick Fuentes. Essentially, he has the toned down version where when he's hosted on other people's shows or when he's talking into like the mainstream, he is the more toned back, like maybe like libertarian version of the right. The like maybe we just shouldn't be getting involved in all this stuff. But then apparently on his own private channel, he has the more what you can pretty safely call the Nazi rhetoric at this point, the more white supremacist and misogynist. So basically, it's another one of those two worlds things where he presents himself one way, to the majority of people, but then to rile up his own close fan base that he knows isn't going to take personal offense to this shit that he's saying, he has this completely over the top, unhinged version of himself. What do you think?
First things I noticed was that he's taking the Andrew Tate approach at going viral. So what Andrew Tate did, if you remember, it was right around the time during COVID when TikTok was becoming a big thing. Andrew Tate blew up on TikTok, but Andrew Tate didn't have an account on TikTok at Andrew Tate or whatever. You would constantly see videos of him posted by hundreds or thousands of different accounts. And then it turns out that what happened was Andrew Tate ran a website called Hustlers University where, you sign up for a class and one of your tasks was to post videos of them. And he kind of rigged the new network they formed with TikTok. The TikTok network, as we talked about before, it no longer tied people to people. It tied content to content. So it used to be about building up your page. You get famous, like a guy like Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder got famous, or Charlie Kirk got famous over time by building up their page and continuing to post things that people like and building up their reputation on their page. And if someone else were to start posting Charlie Kirk stuff, Charlie Kirk might have gotten mad about that and said, oh, he's stealing my content. That's supposed to be on my page. But now that they tie content to content, it's not about building up your page. If you want to go get famous on the internet, it's about flooding the scene with hundreds or thousands of different people, hundreds of thousands of different pages, all posting videos of you, all reels of you.
Is that what it was? I'd never heard that, and it makes so much sense now of the Andrew Tate one.
And he hacked it.
Have his page. He made people go out and post for him, and that makes so much damn sense now of that meteoric rise. Instead of you posting your content and maybe reaching other people, there's 1,000 pages with their content and the linked accounts of, okay, these guys like similar videos to what this guy posts. He's posting that. It'll show up on their pages because they like similar things versus you have to go out and reach them all individually. That makes so much sense.
There was a day or two where my entire explore page was all different accounts, just Nick Fuentes videos. And it was the same thing with Andrew Tate back then. There's been a couple others who have done the similar thing. But so to kind of understand how he did this was to go back a little bit. So I remember him back in the day because I was a fan of Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and these guys, and they hated him. And there was something called the Groyper Wars that were going on. And so the Groypers were the name of the group of followers that Nick Fuentes had. Nick Fuentes, so he originally signed with the Daily Wire. He's about our age. I think he's 26, 27. He signed with the Daily Wire, and he started, from his perspective, he says, well, I started asking questions about Israel, and they didn't like that. Which he might be kind of true on that. But I could see from the other perspective, it was like, no, you were being very racist and vulgar and hurting our cause, and we didn't like that. And so they went their separate ways. So what ends up happening is he has a lot of very close-knit followers, and around the time of January 6th, everyone gets booted off of all these platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all of them. And so now he's kind of in the underground on Rumble. Rumble is basically the substitute for YouTube that came up around the time everyone got banned from YouTube. They would go to Rumble instead. So he was making his videos on Rumble, and there was a couple things that led to his potential to rise again. One was Elon buying Twitter and letting him back on. And then the other big one, obviously, was the shooting of Charlie Kirk, because he actually had a lot of beef with Charlie Kirk. He had something called the Groyper Wars, where if you look back at old Charlie Kirk videos when he would go and do the sit on campus and have people come up and ask him questions, I was watching one the other day and I was like, holy shit. Yeah, it was like five in a row.
There'd be
And at the time, he
going
didn't
up
even
and
know
stuff
it
like
either.
asking him like
I was
straight
sitting
up
there
about like
watching it with
Israel and
Megan. I was
stuff
like,
like
oh,
that,
holy
right?
shit,
It's like
those are
it's
like,
just the
because
Nick
this was from
Fuentes
like five,
party
6 years
going,
ago.
trying,
But he was sitting
yeah.
there and like four or five people come up in a row and they ask him something about Israel or something about, like the Jewish media or something that's like a total Nick Fuentes thing, and he has no idea. He's like trying to give an answer, and then he like looks over at someone. He's like, a lot of like Israel questions coming up, right? And then it turns out that like it was Nick Fuentes sending out his guys out to harass him basically, or to at least pester him about these questions. But the key to this is that Nick Fuentes was sent to the underground. He was sent to Rumble, where there was, I mean, if you go on Rumble, it's like the Truth Social version of YouTube. It's all like far right shit mostly, or at least moderate right, but there's nobody on the left there. And he was basically cut off. Anyone who would have been a casual fan, cut off. It's all just like a small group of like diehard fans of this. And so they're sent to the underground here. Now, how do you think he does the Andrew Tate method? Well, he goes on his show, or at least goes in some type of Discord channel or something, and gets this small group of maybe 1,000 or a couple thousand diehard followers to all start making accounts for him and start posting his stuff for him. And so that's what he does. He basically has like a small army of diehard supporters who have been with him since the beginning. They saw him get shunned from the Daily Wire. They saw him get banned from all these platforms. They had people came to his house to try to kill him. They saw him go through all that. And now he's using that 100% to elevate himself using the new, the Reels economy, where it's not about how much you post on your page. It's about how much other pages you can get to post you. That's what blew him up. Some people have accused him of using like Somalian or Middle Eastern bot farms, which that I'm sure he might be doing too. But anyway, getting to the point, which is that he did jump on this viral thing, and now he is 100% a mainstream conservative, or I wouldn't even call him conservative. I'd call him, I don't know if I call him a full-on Nazi, but he's alt-right. Alt-right is the description they give him. He's become a mainstream guy. He just had some of the for the last like 2 weeks, he's been the number one podcaster on all of the internet, and those aren't bots. A lot of those are real people because he did his thing and it worked. But I guess the point being is that this meteoric rise came after the death of Charlie Kirk, who they accused of being a Nazi, and it is a little bit ironic now that they just platformed the actual Nazis by doing that.
So I had gone down. I had never heard of a Groyper before the Charlie Kirk assassination, and then that happens, and a lot of my feed is trying to blame that on the Groypers. Like they're calling the dude who shot him a Groyper, right? Like, oh, there was a super far right Nick Fuentes fan who didn't like Charlie Kirk because he wasn't far right enough, essentially, right? That's one of the theories that's out there as to what had happened with Charlie Kirk. Some of the quotes that I've now been seeing from him are completely heinous, and I mean, at a certain point, do you think that you can throw the baby out with the bathwater at that point? Meaning, is Nick Fuentes now basically like you can't really agree with him on almost anything basically anymore because of, all right, here's some quotes that I've seen. And like I saw this like a week ago, I'm like, that can't be real, right? And I'm pretty sure it's real now because he said basically the same shit on Piers Morgan. Women should not have the right to vote. Most black people should be in jail, and it goes on like that. When you have opinions like that, do you get to have valid other opinions?
Obviously, I don't agree with any of those opinions, but it's important to look at like, okay, so why do so many people like him? What is it? And obviously there are some good opinions. And he's what he does, and you mentioned the two personas thing, is he will sneak those pretty good opinions in there when he knows he has a big audience.
That's important.
But then when he's back in his underground world where he's got that couple thousand diehard fans, and his claim is that, well, I'm just kind of messing around. It's like, I know a lot of these guys. There's only a couple thousand of these guys who are watching me on these videos, and these are all guys that a lot of them I've met and like that, or I've at least talked to on the internet and engaged with, and like this is kind of just messing around with the boys here. That's not what I actually believe. Well, so once he starts doing the circuit and he goes on big names, Tucker, Steven Crowder, all these kind of big podcasts, that's when he plays that other side where he starts saying some things that actually make sense. Now, he also says a lot of things that I don't like. If you were to look at what his actual ideology is, or at least what he claims it tends to switch a lot. And that's kind of why when I said he's intelligent in a strange way, he's not coherently intelligent. I don't think he doesn't really have a coherent ideology, at least that I've seen. Because, I've started looking into him a little bit to try to figure out what exactly this guy believes. And it switches. He doesn't really believe anything. He's more of like the Joker. He just is, he's a rage baiter. He's a clickbaiter, kind of a troll, I guess, because I've seen him switch from being a libertarian to saying he wants a white Christian theocracy to saying that he agrees with Hitler and he would like a government similar to the Nazis, and also that he likes Stalin and he would like a government similar to the communists. So he doesn't really seem to have any coherent ideology at all. It's almost similar to like a nihilism kind of like, we want to just cause chaos and be trolls and meme and destroy is what it seems like. And that's what it was on Piers Morgan. I mean, I listened to the whole Piers Morgan interview, and I'll give Piers Morgan credit. I'll also give Nick Fuentes credit a little bit on this. Piers Morgan was the first person who actually gave him a hard time. Every other podcast he's been on, I've listened to, and they hit him with the soft gloves. Tucker totally was like kissing his ass the whole time. They all were. Piers Morgan actually pulled up his videos from his actual podcast and said, but he got him good on a couple, dude. There was one where he goes, he's giving him a hard time about the Jewish thing, and Nick Fuentes was trying to pull the moderate version. He goes, no, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean that all Jewish people were bad. I was talking about a certain thing. And Piers Morgan goes, so would you say you have Jewish friends? And he goes, oh, yeah, I've got plenty of Jewish friends, tons of Jewish friends. And Piers Morgan's like, well, that's weird because you also said this. And he plays another clip of him, and he's basically just like, don't ever be, like, you can never be friends with anyone who's Jewish, just like going off. And it's like, you got him. He totally got him. At the same time, I'll give Nick Fuentes a little bit of credit, not because he's right at all, but just because he did kind of get him a couple times back, because he rather than trying to play the old game of like, well, I'm trying to be politically correct now, he did just come out and own it and say, well, hey, look, Piers, not everyone cares about being politically correct. When you're talking in a group, I'd already been banned from everything. I already been debanked. I've already been kicked off of all these platforms. At this point, I'm basically having an online discussion with me and a group of my friends who are the only people that I'm allowed to contact anymore because all of these Jewish media companies banned me. And that's what I mean by he's clever in that way, where he can come back. You can get him cornered up against the wall, and he can actually like kind of weave his way out of it and just make up something that sounds kind of reasonable, So I'll give him a little credit on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I haven't gone too deep down that rabbit hole yet. Maybe I will, but a lot of it kind of seems to tie into like postmodernism a little bit, doesn't it? Where it's like you said, there is no like set ideology that he has. It's everything sucks, and nothing's ever going to get better, and it doesn't even matter what kind of people believe because I can just say all this crazy shit, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, but at the end of the day, he realizes at the end of the day, all that really matters is having an audience.
I think it's almost like the extreme right and the extreme left do have a lot of this in common, where they don't really care what's right or wrong, or they don't care about being accurate. They care more about kind of what you said, which is just like trying to cause a scene, like that, like similar to like when you see very far left people talk about like, this is what it was. It was someone he went on when he was on Piers Morgan. He said, well, I think everyone's a little bit racist. I don't think you can say I'm a racist, but I think everyone's racist. And it was a lot of people on the far left saying, look, he thinks everyone's racist. And my response was, well, didn't you also say that, though? You said that 4 years ago, that everyone was racist and that they should apologize for their racism. He's also saying everyone is racist, but he's just not apologizing for it. And I think viewing everything, I'll put it this way. Both extremes view everything through a racial lens, which is not good. And
to a certain degree.
Neither of them, they're kind of similarly coming around to be like having the same worldview a little bit,
Yeah. The horseshoe theory coming back. To a certain degree, I do kind of believe that everyone is racist to an extent. Maybe not racist, but like tribalism is a thing. tribalism's one of the most ingrained aspects of our psyche. When we came out of the caves, we had to learn, is this person in my group, or is this person part of the other group that was going to come kill us, steal our women, steal all of our resources, and take it back to their caves? That is one of the core things that are burned into every single person's mind from evolution for hundreds of thousands of years. Example, one of the best memes you'll ever see on Twitter is people talking about the Balkans. And it'll be like, the caption is from Mulan. And, so the caption is Balkan people talking about someone 30 miles down the road from them. And it's a screenshot from Mulan saying, savages, barely even human, right? And these are Balkaners talking about other Balkaners, someone who literally lives on the other side of the field than you. You consider them subhuman, you consider them worse than you. This is a thing all across the globe. This is not only an American thing, only a European thing. All right, they were colonizers, yes, sure. However, every single group thinks certainly about other groups. Many Asian countries don't like Japan.
It's stereotypes,
why? Well,
basically.
because Japan has a history of colonizing and, rape and going around and doing kind of what they want. It's the same thing in India. North Indians think they're better than Southern Indians. This is a thing. It's it's part of your right. It's part of your ideology that there's an in group and there's not an in group. Do you know what countries a lot of the time are named after like the group of people that were settled in that area? Do you know where most terms come from?
I guess, I mean, it's probably like a name. It's a last name maybe or something. Is that where you're going?
It means most people's
Okay.
name for themselves is the people. We are the people. Everyone else is an outsider, not part of the people, right? So like when you call yourselves like the Inuit or the this or the that, mostly in your language, that's the word for the people, right? So you call yourselves the people. Everyone who doesn't have your shared beliefs, your shared language, your shared culture is an other. And that is one of the biggest things that I think politics has to address. One of the biggest things is getting us away from that sort of groupthink, that sort of tribalism, us versus them mentality.
Kind of two separate things a little bit. The first one was the idea of racism and that everyone is racist. So I would agree with what you're saying here, which is that, like, of course, everyone recognizes race. I mean, if you were to think about it in the sense of, like, okay, if, especially back in the day, it's honestly, I think it's not so much anymore because a lot of people grow up now in diverse community. I think if you grow up in a diverse community, you are a little bit less racist than someone who maybe grew up around, say, all white people. You went to a Catholic school with mostly white people, right? And then you're kind of let's assume that everyone definitely does have a little bit of like a self bias, right? Everyone, whatever I look like, I prefer people who look like that, right? Everyone's got a little bit of that. Okay, so but now here's the side of that, which is that okay, but then there was a while, and it's not as big of a thing anymore, but I'm sure that the pendulum might swing back soon, which I don't really think it should, because I think this is just as toxic as the Nick Fuentes style blatant racism, is the very like hardcore exaggerated anti-racism, where it's like this person should be fired from his job because he exhibited something that might show he has some type of inherent bias somewhere deep down in the subconscious of his psyche. It's like, but if we're saying that everyone has that, then why are we demonizing it as such a bad thing? There's a difference between someone saying, remember, like microaggressions was a big thing. And it's like, okay, sure, maybe I wasn't a big believer that was like a sign of inherent racism, but maybe it is. Maybe by asking someone who looks different than you, where are you from? That is like a sign of like some type of inherent bias. Maybe it is. I don't know. But there's a much bigger, there's a big difference between that and something that like Nick Fuentes is doing, which is saying the N-word on Piers Morgan in front of 6 million people or 7 or whoever was watching. There's an intentionally trying to stoke racism. That's a big thing. That's a big difference. And I feel like what the left did wrong in around 2020, 2021 was demonizing like all of those little small things while at the same time saying, but that's inherent and everybody has that. And it's like there's a contradiction there, which I think if you're going to call someone a racist as like a as an attack, saying, "Hey, I don't like that guy because he's a racist." Also, everyone's a racist. Well, the word racist has no meaning. There needs to be two different words now. You're describing two different things. You know what I mean?
I know I I'll still disagree with you a bit at the end a little bit, but I do agree with what you started with like the microaggressions thing, right? Like that went too far. I saw a pretty good video about this the other day. Uh, it was a stand up comedian. I don't remember who it was. I'd give him credit if I do. I watch 1,000 clips a day, so and our little brains are incapable of remembering all that. But basically, he's like, it's hard being a leftist, man. He's like, let me give you an example. He's like, if you want to be a conservative, like you'll go to another conservative and they'll be like, do you believe in small government? It's like, yeah. It's like, do you believe in right to own guns? It's like, yeah. It's like, do you believe in like, do you think, I don't know, like, the Jews control the media? It's like, no. It's like, well, you'll get there, man. Like, don't worry about it. You're like, you'll come around, right? He's like, you could still be with us. He's like, on the left, it's like, do you believe in healthcare? It's like, yeah, I believe in healthcare. It's like, oh, do you believe in a strong education system? Yeah, I believe in a strong education system. It's like, are you a vegan? It's like, well, no, I still eat chicken and beef. Well, why don't you go and join all the other fucking Nazis on that side then? We don't want you there, right? And I think that's kind of what you were alluding to a bit there.
100% correct. I've been kind of making that case for a while, which is I see a lot of people on the right, like a guy like Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, who are constantly, or Matt Walsh, I've been going off Matt Walsh, constantly saying we need to unite with the alt right because look at the left. They're all united. They're all united. We need to be more like them. And my case is no, we don't. I think it's a feature, not a bug of the right that, I mean, so many people on the right have gotten in debates with each other and I mean, comedy is the best way of like expressing that type of idea that's hard to put into words. That's it right there. That's a feature, not a bug. I think that's one of the things I like about the right is that someone like Piers Morgan, he's kind of center, but he's been leaning right lately, he'll go on and he'll smoke somebody like Nick Fuentes. And the thing is, that's actually good. It probably is good for Nick Fuentes, or it definitely is. But it's almost like you know who that hurts the most is the left. That hurts the left the most. That doesn't hurt the center right. They act like that hurts the center right. The problem with the left is that they let the radicals, like they let the Nick Fuentes of the left, whoever that is, they let them steer the ship because they want to unite with them. They want to be in solidarity, kind of. I think that's a bad thing. I think that the left would do better if they did that more, and I think the right should keep doing that. Or like right now, it seems like everyone's trying to. It almost seems like they're switching a little bit, and the right is trying to like rally around something, try to find something, and it's like I kind of like the idea of there is no one like we all have to agree, we all have to get in line. If you want to be on the right, you've got to agree with all of these things. I think the idea that there's different factions, I mean, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing doesn't matter. It is the reality. There is different factions. There are different factions on the left. There's different factions on the right. Honesty and truth is the best answer, I think. Be honest, and it's like at the end of the day, when you get to a general election and it's a right-winger versus a left-winger, all those factions on the right are all going to vote for the right-winger. All those on the left are all going to vote for the left-winger. That's fine. But when it comes to who that candidate is, there should be debate. It shouldn't be everyone has to agree. I think that's stupid.
Well, that's why there should be more than two political parties. We've said this a million times, but like, all right, maybe I'm not insanely far left-leaning. Maybe I'm pretty like center-left a little bit, right? It's like, all right, I believe in some things on the right, but a little bit more to the left. And all right, maybe I want to go for the center left party. And then maybe there'd be like a full on socialist party. Maybe there'd be a full on communist party. Then on the right, there'd be, like all the way like libertarian party. If you want to be, I don't want any government. I don't want people telling me when I can and can't make toast. And maybe there'd be like actually, we're just small government Republicans who still believe in, spending and, things like that. But that's why you need more than just this duality of you're either all of this or you're all of that, right? And that's where a lot of the issues come from. Do you have anything else there? One thing on microaggressions. So on microaggressions, this is an interesting one. Me and maybe he won't want his name being brought up. So me and a friend from high school who you would know, who I can tell you afterwards, we were talking about this one day. He basically said he's right-leaning, and in my friend group, we're almost all left-leaning, so, always more interesting talking to him than most other people in my friend group. But he was basically saying, he's like, I said something at dinner the other day, and my brother called me out for being a racist. And he's like, I didn't say anything wrong. He's like, I didn't know what I said, basically. But if you are one of those super hardcore, like, leftists of trying to catch every single dog whistle, trying to catch every single microaggression, you have to know every single racist thing that there is. Because
Boom.
if you don't, then you can't catch
Nailed
it,
it.
right?
Nailed it. And the right makes that argument a lot, which is that the left sometimes comes off more racist than the right because, like, there's been times where I've seen, like, someone will say something and not mention a race at all, and it was like, no race crossed my head. But then, like, someone on the left will jump in and be like, well, this is obviously about black people because it's like, I didn't even think of that, and I don't think the person who said it was thinking that. I think that you were thinking that because you're the one that's focused on the race all the time. You know, like it reminds me of the quote. Have you heard this one where it's like when it's something along the lines of when you stare into the abyss stares back. Doesn't it seem a little bit like that where it's like I'm fighting so hard against racism that now I have become someone who constantly analyzes race all the time. Whereas, like,
Yeah.
I'm on the right and I've got like a very diverse group of friends that I hang out with, and I might make a racist joke here and there, and they think it's funny because they know that we're friends
Yeah.
and we get along fine, and it's like it's not a big deal. Whereas, like, someone who's like also like always hyper analyzing everything on race turns into the person who's like, oh, I don't know, that guy's just constantly thinking about like what race I am, you know?
There's a good 30 Rock bit about this. Tracy Morgan is convinced that old school racism is coming back. So he like looks up every single like racist term basically. So at one point, Liz Lemon, who's oh god, Tina Fey like calls him a buffoon at one point, and he's like, buffoon, that is a 17th century slur for a black pirate. He's like, you cannot be calling me that, Liz Lemon. And, right, it's like all that, right? Like the term, like I got gypped the other day. I've been saying that my whole life. I had no idea it's about gypsies. So then if someone tried to call me out, like, oh my god, you're being racist towards the Roma people, it's like, what? Like, how do you know that? How do you?
The peanut gallery was one too. Like our teachers used to say that, like, hey, like quiet in the peanut gallery or something. Turned out that was something about race. That was some racial thing. I don't know. Yeah, it was. I can't remember what it was, but I mean, it was like all over the place, constant. It was what was the one? It was something
That's a
about
racist term. No.
I'm not gonna be able to think of it, but it was like a very common one that everyone says. And then it was like, oh no, you can't say that anymore. That's right. It started getting too crazy. But I think that's what it is. Is it gets you get. That's why it's good to have at least two sides, hopefully even more. But when one side is like dominating the discourse, then they just start to get out of control. And you're seeing that Nick Fuentes. The only difference between Nick Fuentes and the far left people is that Nick Fuentes doesn't try to like he doesn't deflect from it. Like he'll say like, yeah, I am a racist, yeah, and he'll jump on board and like start doing it. It's he's like the anti version of that. But both are terrible. We shouldn't be thinking that much about race at all, especially in America. We're the most diverse country in the world. I very rarely thought about race ever until 2015 when it became a talking point in the media. It seems like it's like the more it's emphasized, the more it becomes something that kind of sits in your brain. You should you're better off almost just like not really even hyper analyzing it that much, whether it's the Nick Fuentes trying to get the clicks or whether it's the person who's trying to be the social justice warrior fighting against it. Either way, no one's really no person in their right mind is actually thinking that. One of my favorite quotes is, "You ever see a black billionaire and a white billionaire? You think the white billionaire is racist to the black? You think they're talking about race? Probably not. Like the reason they're there is because they don't give a shit about that."
Racism is like learned, right? I agree on what you said. Like, I didn't think about race until like whatever, like 2016 or whatever. All right, maybe this is us being white
Sure.
dudes in America and not really having to worry about race. I'm sure if we were raised as black kids, you would learn more about race than me and you did, right? But at a certain point, I do tend to agree. When it's hyper analyzed and it's the focus of everything.
Right.
Really, when it comes down to it, it's not about race. That's the whole fucking thing. It's about economics, right? It's about trying to right some of these systems. Yes, the systems in the past were inherently racist, sure, right? But now you got to stop focusing on race and start focusing more on like socioeconomic standing in my
it almost seems somewhat intentional a little bit, where the media and they want to make it more about race so that we don't think about it in terms of class, which is what it definitely is, you know?
Yes, it's you see this on leftist social media at all times. They want you fighting the class war, the culture war, so that you don't fight the class war. Because it's always, again, it's always like you think
Yeah.
the black guy or the Muslim family next door is your enemy. It's like, no, it's the fucking kleptocrats who are stealing all of your data and stealing every
If you
form
look
of.
at someone who lives next door to you, that, I mean, it's not definite, but it's likely that they probably have about the same education as you. They probably make about the same amount of money as you. They probably own about the same amount of assets as you. They are your teammate more so than someone who, might be the same color as you. They're definitely more similar. The Muslim family that lives on your street is definitely more similar to you than Donald Trump
Yes.
is. That's guaranteed. Or whoever, Bernie Sanders or whoever. It is much more of a class war. But I 100%. That's one thing I'll give the left. That's a great quote. If it's 100% fighting the culture war because we should be fighting the class war. And the thing about fighting the class war is that it doesn't. The class war is not as sensational. It's not as fun. The class war. If you want to fight the class war, what it takes is kind of like
Yes.
studying economics and like trying to figure out what the stock's doing, and that's boring and hard. That's boring and hard. It's much easier to like
Collect.
go on TikTok and like rant about like the transgenders or something.
Yeah, exactly. On this topic, you probably saw this, but this was years back at this point, I think. But did you see the dude? It was a guy. He was applying to get into medical school, and he was an Indian guy. He was applying to get into medical schools, and he just couldn't get into any medical schools. So what he did, he got a different haircut, got like a fade or something, like changed his like he put on some like makeup or something like that, and then instead of putting Indian on his submissions applications, he started putting African American. Lo and behold, dude starts getting into basically any college that he wants to, and dude, actually. At that point, he like fully committed to the bit. He went full undercover. He started joining like African American like groups on campus and shit like that.
It shouldn't matter. Why does it matter? Like it shouldn't. I don't think that it should matter at all. And that's why you do hear from the right a lot where it's like, well, the left are the racist ones. To a
Right.
degree, it makes sense. It's that's what it is. I think it's a lot of the moderates of both sides fighting against the radicals of both sides, and kind of throwing everyone in one bucket. Where someone on the left sees somebody like Nick Fuentes and says, well, obviously the right are racist, when like 90% of the right doesn't agree with Nick Fuentes. Same thing applies where a lot of people on the right will look at someone who's like all about DEI and affirmative action and all this, and it's like, well, that seems kind of racist to me. When like most people would probably say what you're saying, which is like race doesn't really matter. What I do somewhat support is like the idea of like, hey, if you did if look, if you had the same grade in school as somebody else, but you grew up in a very poor community and you didn't have a dad, and you might have like had a lot of trauma in your childhood, and that other person had like a very nice family in the suburbs and everything was good for them, then that means that you overcame more obstacles than that person did. So you should maybe be ranked a little bit higher, and we give you a little boost. That part I agree. I think that's totally fair. I just don't know why we have to bring in race to it. I don't think race matters at all. If it was a white person, black person, Indian person who had the same identical upcoming or whatever, I think that it shouldn't matter. I think the race thing is, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's definitely like a distraction from the real issues, I feel like.
Yeah. We talked on education ad nauseum, but it it is just crazy that how is how has that not been made like public knowledge at this point? Like, all right, you want to be an engineer? Here are engineering materials. All you have to do is study
It's
this and
going
like
there. I'm
pass the
telling you.
exam,
I'm
and
telling you
you
it's
can
going
get a
there.
job at these companies who will accept this version of that test or whatever. I don't know. Education's insane. We've talked about it enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to call it there? You want? Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.